They've been incredibly frustrated by Trump because, honestly, who couldn't be? But honestly, why do they hate Trump so much?
Catch you up on the latest on Donald Trump. That's what I'd like to do right now. So the latest on Donald Trump, obviously Donald Trump released a 9/11 video. He literally just minutes ago posted on Truth Social blasting Joe Biden for suggesting that he was at 9/11 the day after on 9/12/2001. Some people are calling Joe Biden's comment that he was there and remembered being there in the horrors a lie. Some people are saying he just had a little mental blemish. Either way, if it was just a mental blemish, it kind of questions again, okay, is he really fit to run? And then other people are like, oh no, he's just lying again. I don't know, there's all this sort of craziness going on. And ultimately, whether it was a lie or a fib or it was just forgetting, I don't know how you can forget, but anyway, it was forgetting. This is some of the latest drama that's going on and the latest that Trump's posted on Truth Social. But what I do think is very interesting is that Trump is now trying to get Judge Chutkan to Chutkan to recuse herself. And the reason for that is some of the judge's background. Now, some folks on the left are arguing that Donald Trump is just trying to delay the process because Donald Trump's trials are set for right before Super Tuesday. The way in which the timing of how this trial is supposed to be set up has occurred, has left a lot of Trump supporters frustrated, arguing that the judge is clearly biased against Trump, trying to sandbag him in the 2024 election when, some on the left say, hey, look, well, she's not the one who indicted him. It's, this is not her, okay? Don't blame her. And so then some people on the left are going as far as saying, hey, she's just a, black woman and that's it. She shouldn't have to end up getting recused just because Trump doesn't like a black woman. That's what some people on the left are arguing. Donald Trump is obviously making the argument that no, she, ended up working for Schiller Flexner LLP, and these folks are, deemed to be individuals who not only lean a little bit more left, but it's worth noting that when Hunter Biden was an attorney, he also worked for that same firm. So there's a lot of political bias that those on the right are saying is injected into this request to have this particular judge supervise the trial of Donald Trump because it might be a judge that might favor more Democratic-leaning result, which that's why Donald Trump is trying to get her to recuse herself because he's alleging bias. Of course, at the same time, you've got Jack Smith now telling the judge that Donald Trump is disobeying his protective orders, and now they're trying to get the judge to basically gag order Donald Trump, which is another reason Donald Trump is trying to get the judge recused. Donald Trump could theoretically end up getting thrown in jail, much like Sam Bankman-Fried did, if he continues to violate protective or orders in terms of threatening witnesses or witness intimidation on social media, which, of course, those on the right say he's not doing. Those on the left say he's doing actively every day. Or honestly, it's like, how do you be a judge in this situation? But then again, where the judge used to work does kind of raise at least some eyebrows. What is very interesting is, and I purposefully wanted to look at this, and I know nobody trusts them as far as you can throw them. I had to send cease and desist letters to them when I ran in California for governor. CNN's latest poll, and we're going to look at Real Clear Politics and the average of all of these, but I thought it was very interesting that CNN, of all people, CNN, of all companies, CNN suggests that between DeSantis and Ramaswamy, Trump is the best option for beating Biden, which I think is really incredible. You guys going to school?
Bye.
Get over here. Gotta say goodbye. Mwah. Have fun at school, bro.
Bye, guys.
Max, get over here. Oh, what are you grabbing to say goodbye? You're grabbing the needler, bro? You taking the needler to school? You can't take weapons to school like this, unless the Covenant are there.
Pew. Pew, pew.
All right, I'll see you guys later. Have fun at school. Bye. So anyway, going back to these things, we look at the average of these polls here. Obviously, your leading contenders right now against Donald Trump, based on basically every single poll that's being conducted, is your top three for Republican are either Trump, DeSantis, or Ramaswamy. However, Ramaswamy, if you end up putting against Biden, Pence, Haley, Scott, or Christie, CNN thinks that they would win over Biden, which is kind of interesting because that's leading some on the right to say, of course CNN wants you to think that. CNN wants you to put up a weaker candidate so that Biden does end up winning. Of course. But anyway, I did think it was very interesting that at least in these three, they suggest that Trump was in the strongest position I found against Biden. Found that very interesting. So anyway, this is just some of the latest drama, and I want to catch you up with a little bit more speed. Obviously, there's a lot going on here. Some people are alleging that the judge is biased not only because of her history working for this law firm or setting trial date for Donald Trump the day before Super Tuesday, but also that allegedly she donated a bunch of money to the Obamas. Honestly, if you ever want to do anything in politics, I feel like it's like you almost can't donate to anyone because people are just going to go through your history and go, wow, you supported this person who screwed this up. It's like, oh gosh, like the transparency of donations. On one hand, it's probably a good thing, but then on the other hand, it's probably like, okay, it's kind of tough. Yeah, this gives you a little bit of the latest on the madness that's going on. And I'll tell you, this election cycle is going to be really, really entertaining. And I do want to also show this right here from Tucker Carlson, because I think Tucker made a really great argument. So let's listen to this from Tucker. Let's pop this up, and we'll go ahead and listen right about now.
To reason in the order. It's not just that it's nice to say what you think, and that it's essential to human dignity to be able to express what you really believe, though that is true. You cannot be a full citizen if you can't say what you think. You are instead a slave. If you're not allowed to say what you think, you are not a citizen, you are a slave. It's that simple.
This is also a very interesting thing to consider, is that at the same time as this, if you're not allowed to say what you think is going on, there's this massive debate going on at Twitter with the ADL and Elon Musk now suing the Attorney General of California, suggesting, hey, look, we don't want to define what hate speech is because that's not our job as a platform. Like, if there's a law and somebody's violating it, we can enforce that. But just defining what hate speech is, which is protected by the First Amendment, is not something Twitter is going to get involved in. Now, X, obviously. And this is very similar to the echo you get here from Tucker Carlson. Continuing.
And you don't need physical shackles because you have them in your head already. So that is all true. But that's not why they're trying to control what you say. They're trying to control what you say because they know that if you say it, nothing will ever be the same. And this is exactly why they hate Trump. And it's not an endorsement of Trump, but it's just interesting since I've known, I've watched the whole Trump saga, and I've had various feelings at various times. I've been incredibly frustrated by Trump because honestly, who couldn't be? And then other times I've been totally inspired.
This is actually a really interesting line there from Tucker Carlson. What he's doing is he's papering over his text messages that came out during the Fox depositions, where Trump is basically like, I hate Trump, I can't wait for Trump basically to become irrelevant, right? He just papered over that by saying, look, I've been frustrated by Trump. Honestly, who couldn't be? But in fairness, that's actually relatable. I think at some point, everyone has been frustrated by Trump. But then the fact of the matter is, even if you're on the left, everyone's been frustrated by Biden. Why? Because nobody's perfect. That's the way it works. Nobody's perfect. I think that's fascinating. Okay, let's keep going on.
Excited. But the whole time I'm watching Trump, I'm thinking to myself, the core question which no one ever asks, which is, why do they hate him so much? Honestly, why do they hate Trump so much? It's the talking. It's the talking. It's not because Trump's program is so radical. Are you joking? If this were 1985, he'd be like a center-left liberal.
That's actually somewhat of an interesting point. I was thinking about that. So you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who is taking this approach of, I want to be known as extreme. He's literally going on interviews going, I want to be called extreme. Because that's one way to make a name for yourself, right? You say something crazy and then you get media attention. And I'm not necessarily saying crazy is bad. Maybe that crazy could be good. I'm not trying to cast my opinion on it. But when you say something like, let's abolish the FBI and abolish the Department of Education, first of all, half of the country is going to be like, I don't know about that. And the other half is going to be like, hell yeah. And that's fine. But the point is, it is extreme, right? And so you've got Vivek, who says things that are relatively extreme to get attention. Donald Trump does not have to say anything extreme. He just has to kind of play the middle, which is kind of remarkable. Now, somebody here says that, well, the problem with Republicans is they want us to work until we're in diapers and die. I personally think that might be, and this is trying to come from as much of a in the middle point of view as possible. I personally think that if you're working at something that you're not happy about, you should try to do whatever you can to change that, right? Get an education and change something and work where you have at least some enthusiasm for what you're doing. Look, I don't like waking up at 4 a.m. every single day, and I don't need to. I can retire. But I choose to because I do also get excited about providing value and perspective and hopefully motivating people. You know, there's someone else here who says, hey, Kevin, is the money course, he's talking about the how to make more money and get SH9T done faster, course worth it for somebody who has a little money and is 22 years old. And I think one of the best places to get started on building your career is making sure you get the perspective that it's okay to work. It's okay to provide value early on. Right? Yeah, we have a coupon code expiring this Friday, but email us if you have particular questions like this at staff@meetkevin.com. Let's keep going with Tucker Carlson here.
Radical at all. That's fascism? Are you joking? No. No, it has nothing to do with what he does. It has everything to do with the fact that for whatever reason, his brain is not entirely controlled by the people in charge. And
this getting a lot of cheers. Obviously, nobody wants to hear that you're being controlled by some mystery person. That is the biggest fear people have of politicians, is who's actually backing you? Who's actually making the decisions?
Because he's not entirely controlled. Well, first of all, it tells you that everybody else is entirely controlled. If, Trump is the one they hate the most, what did Trump do wrong? I mean, you could say, oh, well, he's orange or whatever. Okay, fine. But, has he really committed a crime so severe that we should send him to prison for the rest of his life? That's insane.
Obviously, this is, referencing J6. That's obviously where a lot of folks on the left are going to go, hell yeah, send him to prison for J6. People on the right, as you can hear the audience.
Insane. And half the Republicans in Washington, probably closer to about 95%, would be very psyched if he went to prison for the rest of his life. So why is that? I'll tell you exactly why. I know, because I've watched this really carefully from Washington for his entire term, and then the subsequent 3 years. They hate Trump because they fear Trump. And they fear Trump not because of what he might do, but because what he might say. And at any moment, Trump might be autistic enough to tell the truth about what's actually happening. Whoa, wait, what's that? I was in D.C. when this started, and Trump had the greatest line I've ever heard. And no one even noticed it except me, because I spent my life in Washington, but he was having some debate, and somebody said something about NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, post-war, to prevent the Soviets from invading Western Europe. And Trump goes, what's the point of NATO? And I remember thinking, what a stupid question. What's the point of NATO? Everyone knows the point of NATO. It's to prevent the Soviets from invading Germany. But I was like, but there are no more Soviets. That ended in 1991. So, what is the point of NATO? That's actually, and then I was thinking to myself, because I had been living in D.C., so I was, captured by the groupthink that does capture you if you live in a place long enough. I remember my wife, who grew up outside Detroit, being like, why would anyone buy a Japanese car? That's insane. She just grew up here. To this day, she would never have a foreign car. What? They can't really be better. You're a product of the world you live in. So I'd never thought of, what's the point of NATO? And Trump said that, and I remember thinking, well, that's an entirely fair question. I'm sure there's a good answer. Anybody? No one can answer it. And instead, they attacked him like he was Hitler. And I remember thinking, why are you mad at him for asking what turns out to be a totally legitimate question? And maybe you've got a good answer. What is it? Shut up! Oh, shut up!
I mean, obviously, the point of NATO is this idea that, hey, we can have democratic countries that essentially agree not to war with each other, right? That's what you have. You have military alliance. And by having a military alliance, you have smoothed over, simpler trade, basically. I mean, look at the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has since been replaced by new agreements. But anyway, you have free trade between Mexico and Canada. You have incentivized trade between America and Europe. A lot of this has to do, in my opinion, with the economy in terms of the existence of NATO. And there is, technically, there has not been a democratic country that has warred with another democratic country. And this is not saying left-leaning. I'm saying like democracy, like a republic, right? You don't get that. Like England and Germany aren't going to war anymore. Germany's not invading America. So you can have policies that do, try to shape incentives in different countries, and those could be like taxing, for example, European vehicles that are imported into America to incentivize the purchase of American vehicles, and that's fine. That's why BMWs are so expensive in America, whereas when you go to Europe, every taxi and every cop car is a BMW or a Volkswagen. Well, it's because you don't have these extra tariffs on them. So the point, in my opinion, is economical. But then the question is, which is raised fairly, is, okay, well, do you need a military alliance to create an economic alliance? And that's where some might say maybe not.
Up. That's your answer, really? And it was that kind of thing. And it was the fear that he might say one of 1,000 things that you're not allowed to say, which is pretty much everything at this point. And by the way, I'll stop at this and take your hostile questions. But if you want to know, and I'm being completely sincere, what's true, the true things are the things that you can't say. I cannot remember the last time someone in public life.
All right, well, cuts off here. So, yeah, this gives us a little bit of a look of what you've got from Tucker Carlson's POV, some of the latest that you get from the big old Donnie T. Some things to keep in mind are you do end up having the next debate coming up. I want to say that's actually this month. It's going to be at the Ronald Reagan Library. That's actually here in Simi Valley. So let's take a look at that. Ronald Reagan Library presidential debate. I'll obviously be covering this September 27th. So mark your calendar for that. That's going to be very entertaining. And that'll be California time in the evening hours, I believe 6. So it's probably be closer to 5 or 6, which would probably be somewhere around 8 to 9. Oh, here it is, 6 p.m. actually. Wow, that gets a little late on the East Coast. But anyway, that's 9 p.m. then on the East Coast. Presidential debate, Ronald Reagan Library. Check-in opens at 4 p.m. Viewing of the main debate is at 6 p.m. Obviously, we'll be covering that. And then it's expected to last 3 hours. I think that's because it's 2 hours for the actual debate, and then they do sort of, interviews with the media or whatever afterwards. So then you flip around between Fox and CNN or whatever channels you want to watch to get some additional commentary, which I think is pretty interesting.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.